Hello everyone, my name is Fiona Denatrea, and today I'll be talking about paintings on copper in colonial Mexico and how artists use this material to depict religious themes, especially the Holy Family. Specifically, I'll talk about two examples, Return of the Holy Family from Egypt by Nicolas Enriquez and The Holy Family by Baltasar de Echave Rioja. These paintings both show how colonial artists blended European traditions with local religious values to create vivid and meaningful works of art. Painting on copper wasn't something that started in the Americas. It was introduced by Spanish artists during the early colonial period. By the late 1500s and early 1600s, copper had become really popular in Europe, especially in places like Flanders and Italy. Artists loved it because it had a super smooth surface that made it easier to create sharp lines, bright colors, and create a jewel-like glow. When the technique came to New Spain, artists quickly realized that copper wasn't just beautiful, it also carried a symbolic meaning. The preciousness of the metal made it a perfect surface for religious paintings, where the goal was to honor the sacred figures within them and inspire devotion. Colonial Mexican artists took the European methods and adapted them to fit the political and spiritual life of their society, making paintings that were both technically impressive and deeply meaningful. And I've included three examples here. One by Nicolas Enriquez again, The Virgin of Guadalupe with the Four Apparitions, Jose de Alcabar's Virgin of the Sorrows, and Andres de Isalas' Saint Joseph with the Christ Child. The first work I'm focusing on is The Return of the Holy Family from Egypt by Nicolas Enriquez, painted in 1773. It's an oil painting on copper measuring about 16.5 by 22.5 inches, and it's a part of the collection at the Metropolitan Museum of Art. The painting shows the Holy Family, Mary on the left and Joseph on the right, holding the Christ child as they walk. Above them, a white dove, which you can see in the middle, which is illuminated by its own light source and has a cloud surrounding it, is in the sky, and above that is God the Father watching down, and they create the Holy Trinity among the three of them. Enriquez was inspired by European prints, especially those by Peter Paul Rubens. The smooth surface of the copper really helps the colors pop and allows for an incredibly fine detail, giving the painting a glowing and sacred feeling, which I kind of showed a close-up of here. It's amazing how he could create such small detail with the dove in the middle. The work also highlights the growing importance of Saint Joseph in colonial Mexico, where devotion to him was becoming more and more popular. Overall, the painting is a great example of Counter-Reformation religious art, using dramatic composition and vivid color to encourage viewers to reflect on divine protection and spiritual ideals. Nicolas Enriquez was a significant artist in colonial Mexico during the mid to late 18th century. He mainly worked in Mexico City, where he focused on religious subjects that blended European traditions with local spiritual needs. Enriquez often adapted European prints, especially Spanish and Flemish examples, and brought them into a colonial Mexican context. Painting on copper was a natural choice for him because it allowed for really sharp detail and intense color, which was important for religious imagery. Although Enriquez wasn't as famous today as some other colonial painters, his works, like some of the ones I've included here, Our Lady of the Sorrows, the Crucifixion, and the Visitation and the Birth of St. John the Baptist, show a deep attention to spirituality, family devotion, and the Catholic identity. Through his art, he helped shape the visual language of faith in colonial Mexico. The second work I'm focusing on is The Holy Family by Baltasar de Echave Rioja, and it's also an oil on copper painting, which is housed in the Denver Art Museum. This painting also focuses on the Holy Family, but it's a little different in feeling. It shows the Virgin Mary picking up the Christ child in a very tender moment while Saint Joseph and other figures surround them. The use of copper once again allows for brilliant color in this composition, with the Virgin Mary's bright reds and blues, and also the blue of the angel right here. Um, the emotional quality of the scene really draws the viewer in, emphasizing both the human love within the Holy Family and their divine importance. Like Enriquez's work, the painting reflects the key ideals from Counter-Reformation, particularly the idea of the Holy Family as a model for Christian living, combining spiritual protection with moral virtue. Baltasar de Echave Rioja was one of the leading painters in 17th century New Spain. He continued the artistic tradition started by his father Baltasar de Echave Orillo and specialized in religious painting, including altarpieces, devotional images, and portraits. Echave Rioja often borrowed from European compositions, but made them feel more personal and local by adding details that would resonate with colonial audiences. His style was known for its elegance, careful light and shadow, and emotional power. Using copper helped him achieve the rich color and sharp detail that made his religious scenes even more powerful and impactful. Through his work, Echave Rioja played a key role in developing a uniquely colonial Mexican form of Baroque religious art. And I included as an example the Burial of Christ, which shows that dark settings with the very emotional scenes. In conclusion, painting on copper gave colonial Mexican artists a perfect medium to create religious images that were vivid, detailed, and spiritually powerful. Both Enriquez and Echave Rioja show how artists in New Spain took European traditions and reshaped them to meet the needs of their own society. Through their paintings, they honored Catholic devotion while creating artworks that felt emotionally real and spiritually moving to colonial viewers. Thank you so much for listening.